Hello and welcome to Financial Accounting. Today, we continue talking about accounts receivable and we'll look at journalizing accounts receivable transactions, including collecting accounts receivable with sales discounts, receiving cash in payment of an account that was previously written off the books, writing off uncollectible accounts, and recording adjustments to allowance for doubtful accounts at year-end. I have two good videos that can help you with today's exercise. I will post the links in the description box. The first is called Accounts Receivable and the Allowance for Doubtful Accounts. And the second is the Accounting Cycle, Capturing Economic Events, Journals, and Posting to General Ledger. And now let's get to our example. The balance sheet of Delta Corporation at December 31st, 2021 includes the following: notes receivable, $45,000, accounts receivable, $183,100, less allowance for doubtful accounts, $18,300. Transactions in 2022 include the following. First, accounts receivable of $139,000 were collected, including accounts of $65,000 on which 2% sales discounts were allowed. Second, $5,500 was received in payment of an account that was written off the books as worthless in 2021. Third, customer accounts of $18,500 were written off during the year. And the last transaction, at year-end, allowance for doubtful accounts was estimated to need a balance of $25,000. This estimate is based on an analysis of aged accounts receivable. The assignment is to prepare all journal entries necessary to reflect the transactions above. Let's look at the first transaction. Accounts receivable is an asset account and is increased by debit and decreased by credit. Accounts receivable of $139,000 were collected, including accounts of $65,000 on which 2% sales discounts were allowed. Let's start with accounts receivable. When you record a journal entry, remember that debits must always equal credits. Because we know that we collected accounts receivable of $139,000, we need to decrease or credit the accounts receivable account by $139,000. We don't reduce the accounts receivable by the amount of discount. If we do so, the accounts receivable, which is a customer invoice, will stay open in the amount of discount, and the accounts receivable will be overstated. Now, let's look at the sales discount. Since this 2% discount only applies to $65,000, the amount of the discount is $1,300. The sales discount account is a contra-revenue account and is increased by debit and decreased by credit. Thus, the sales discount account is debited by $1,300. The last step is to record cash. Since the sales discount of $1,300 was taken, the amount of cash collected is $137,700, which is $139,000 minus $1,300. Let's look at the second transaction. $5,500 was received in payment of an account which was written off the books as worthless in 2021. Since the invoice was previously written off, first what we need to do is bring it back by reversing the write-off transaction. Recall that to write off an uncollectible account, in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, the allowance for doubtful accounts account is decreased or debited, and the accounts receivable account is decreased or credited. The allowance for doubtful accounts account is a Contra-Asset account and is increased by credit and decreased by debit. The second step is to receive payment. To reverse the write-off transaction, we need to debit or increase accounts receivable and credit or increase the allowance for doubtful accounts by $5,500. Let's start tracking the balance in the allowance for doubtful accounts account. We will need it for the last transaction. The beginning balance is $18,300. Note that it was provided on the first slide. Now that we added $5,500, the balance increased to $23,800. The next step is to record payment. Cash is increased or debited, and the accounts receivable account is decreased or credited by $5,500. Note that the allowance for doubtful accounts account is not affected. Let's get to the third transaction. Customers' account of $18,500 were written off during the year. To write off the uncollectible accounts, we need to decrease or debit the allowance for doubtful accounts account and decrease or credit accounts receivable by $18,500. Remember that because we need to match revenue and expenses, GAAP doesn't allow the direct write-off method when the bad debt expense account is debited or increased directly. Note that this transaction affects the allowance for doubtful accounts account by decreasing it. The balance now is $5,300. This is the ending balance before we prepare the year-end adjustments. At year-end, allowance for doubtful accounts was estimated to need a balance of $25,000. This estimate is based on an analysis of aged accounts receivable. Before we move on to the last transaction, let's briefly review how the estimate of uncollectible or doubtful accounts is prepared based on the analysis of aged accounts receivable. This is the balance sheet approach. First, classify the accounts receivable by age. Second, for each age group, determine the likelihood of being uncollectible. Third, for each age group, calculate the separate allowance amount. Finally, add up the allowance amounts to get the balance in the allowance for doubtful accounts. This will be your ending balance of the allowance account. Remember that when we recorded the first three transactions, the balance in the allowance account was $5,300. It should be $25,000. What is the required adjustment to increase the balance? We should increase the balance in the allowance account by $19,700, which is the difference between $25,000 estimated balance and $5,300 balance before the adjustment. To record an increase in the allowance account, we debit or increase the bad debt expense account and credit or increase the allowance for doubtful accounts account by $19,700. The ending balance in the allowance account is now $25,000 as required. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please make sure to subscribe, hit the like button and ring the notification bell so you are notified when we release more videos like this. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you all again in the next video.